ويعني استتباب يعني أو توطيد أو إحكام يعني.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, Algeria said at the UN that any efforts to avoid an escalation of tensions in the Middle East must begin with an end to the Israeli occupation's crimes in Gaza. The emergency meeting of the permanent representatives of the Arab League Council began their meeting today to discuss solidarity with Lebanon and address the serious repercussions of the Israeli occupation's attack. The personal envoy of the Secretary General for Western Sahara, Stefan de Mistura, today arrived in the Sahrawi refugee camps to meet with the Sahrawi leaders. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, has installed the National Commission for the Revision of the Municipal and Provincial Codes in line with his commitment during the electoral campaign and when he took the oath of office. According to a press release from the Presidency of the Republic, the National Commission for the Revision of the Municipal and Provincial Codes will take up its duties as soon as this has been set up. The Chief of Staff of the National People's Army General Said Chingriha has visited the historic monument Altar of the Fatherland in Rome, Italy, where he laid a wreath of flowers in front of the Unknown Soldier Memorial on the second day of his official visit to Italy. The Army General then went to the headquarters of the Italian Defense Staff, where he was welcomed by the Admiral Giuseppe Cavo Dragone. The welcoming ceremony began with the playing of the national anthems of the two countries, followed by a military salute by a military formation at the entrance to the Italian Defense Headquarters. The Army General held extensive talks with Admiral Dragone, the press release notes, adding that the two parties discussed the state of cooperation between the armies of the two countries and exchanged views on current international and regional issues. Representing the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has attended in Mexico City the inauguration ceremony of the new President of Mexico, Ms. Claudia Pardo. On the sidelines of his participation in the inauguration ceremony, the chairman laid a wreath of flowers in front of the salute of Emir Abdelkader in the Mexican capital. Brahim Boughali was accompanied by the ambassador of Algeria to Mexico and the representative of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the national community abroad, which states that several members of the national community settled in Mexico were waiting for him in front of the statue. Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi has chaired a government meeting devoted to examining a number of issues, including the preliminary draft finance bill for 2025, compensation for people affected by bad weather, and campaigns to prevent epidemics in certain provinces of the south, the relaunch of the Green Dam as a strategic project, and the Plafin-Soin campaign, according to a press release issued by the Prime Minister's office. More details in this report by Said Bougazi.
During the meeting, the government examined the preliminary draft finance bill for 2025 in preparation for its presentation to the Council of Ministers. The government also heard a statement on the measures taken to compensate those affected by the bad weather that hit certain provinces in the south of the country last September. In addition, as part of the monitoring of the health situation in certain southern provinces, the government heard the communication on the various measures taken and progress made in the prevention and vaccination campaigns aimed at curbing the spread of epidemics. Efforts remain mobilized and ongoing to eradicate this epidemic situation, notably through the fight against illegal immigration. In addition, and as part of the implementation of instructions from the President of the Republic to relaunch the Green Dam, the government examined the draft executive decree setting out the composition, organization, and functioning of the body coordinating the fight against desertification and the relaunch of the Green Dam. In the end, the government heard a presentation on the 2024-2025 ploughing and sowing season launched on October 1st, and which provided an opportunity to review the preparations for this agricultural season, particularly with a view to ensuring our self-sufficiency in durum wheat by 2025 and barley by 2026 in implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic.
The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, has underlined during his participation in the proceedings of the 56th meeting of the Joint Ministerial Monitoring Committee that the OPEC Plus member countries have fully respected the production levels. During this meeting, held via video conference, the Ministerial Committee first assessed compliance with the production reduction commitments by OPEC Plus countries for July and August 2024. The committee's ministers also discussed recent developments on the international oil market and exchanged constructive views on its short-term prospects. As you followed in our top stories, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, has said in New York that any effort to avoid an escalation of tensions in the Middle East must begin with an end to the Zionist crimes in Gaza. Speaking at a Security Council meeting devoted to the situation in the Middle East, Ammar Benjama insisted any effort to avoid an escalation of tensions in the Middle East region must begin with an end to the brutal Zionist attacks on Gaza. While denouncing the ongoing Zionist aggression against Lebanon, the Algerian representative pointed out that we must not lose sight of the crimes that have been committed for almost a year in the Gaza Strip.
While we must not allow the escalation in Lebanon to overshadow the ongoing tragedy in Gaza, it seems some have grown indifferent of Gaza's people plight. Any effort to address the broader escalation in the region must begin with halting the brutal assault in Gaza. I repeat, any effort to address the broader escalation in the region must begin with halting the brutal assault in Gaza. We need an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
With regard to Lebanon, the ambassador drew attention to the fact that Israel had blatantly violated international law and international humanitarian law by targeting civilians, blowing up telecommunications equipment, and carrying out a ground invasion of Lebanon. For Algeria's respective or representative at the UN, the Security Council's inability to act gave the Zionist entity carte blanche to attack Lebanon while continuing its crimes in Gaza.
We stand perilously close to a regional conflagration, with tensions escalating daily. The situation has further deteriorated due to the Israeli aggression against Lebanon. The Security Council must act with greater resolve to be relevant, simply to be credible, as the highest authority responsible for maintaining international peace and security. It is unacceptable for its decision, including Resolution 2735, to be blatantly disregarded. Israel is not above the law, and we must hold it accountable.
On another level, Ammar Benjama expressed Algeria's solidarity with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who was declared persona non grata by the Israeli Occupation Authority.
And I express Algeria's full solidarity, admiration, and support for the Secretary General following the incredible decision of the Israeli occupying authorities to declare him persona non grata. This decision reflects a clear disdain of the UN system and the entire international community. For the Israeli authorities, no narrative, no truth exists except their own.
He said that peace in the Middle East would inevitably require the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East al-Quds as its capital, as well as total withdrawal of the Israeli army from the occupied Arab territories of Lebanon and Syria. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has condemned the sickening cycle of violence in the Middle East on the brink of an abyss. Addressing an emergency meeting of the 15 member states of the Council, he had this to say.
The raging fires in the Middle East are fast becoming an inferno. Exactly 1 week ago, I briefed the Security Council about the alarming situation in Lebanon. Since then, things have gone from bad to much, much worse. It's high time to stop the sickening cycle of escalation after escalation that is leading the people of the Middle East straight over the cliff. Each escalation has served as a pretext for the next. We must never lose sight of the tremendous toll that this growing conflict is taking on civilians, and we cannot look away from systematic violations of international humanitarian law. This deadly cycle of tit-for-tat violence must stop.
That was UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The emergency meeting of the permanent representatives of the Arab League Council began their meeting today, chaired by Yemen, to discuss solidarity with Lebanon and address the serious repercussions of the Israeli occupation's attack. The meeting came at the request of Iraq to hold an urgent session at the level of permanent representatives of the Council to discuss the Israeli occupation's military escalation against Lebanon and the resulting humanitarian consequences. The meeting is addressing ways to help displaced and refugees, deliver urgent medical and food aid to those affected, as well as calling the international community to stand with Lebanese people, also collaborate with international organizations to ensure the immediate delivery of aid. The UN is preparing to launch a second phase of polio vaccinations for 640,000 children in the Gaza Strip, which is being subjected to a savage aggression, the organization's spokesperson, Stéphane Dujarric, has said. Speaking at a press briefing, Dujarric said that preparations are underway for the second round of vaccinations against polio in Gaza, which should take place in mid-October and will include the distribution of vitamin A supplements. Pursuing its wanton aggression against Lebanon, 5 people were killed and 8 others wounded in a Zionist army bombardment on Wednesday night, targeting the Lebanese capital Beirut and its southern suburbs. Said Bouazi reports.
The Zionist raid, which targeted the residential flat in western Beirut, left 5 martyrs and 8 wounded, the ministry said in a statement. Zionist army aircraft also bombed the Muawwad and the American district in the southern suburbs. The Lebanese Ministry of Health announced on Wednesday evening that 46 people had been killed and 85 others injured following strikes by the Zionist enemy over the last 24 hours in several parts of the country. The Zionist entity has continued to bombard Lebanon since 23 September with airstrikes that have killed more than 1,000 people and injured more than 2,950, according to the same source, which also stated that a total of 1,640 citizens, including 104 children and 194 women, have been killed since October 2023. Zionist warplanes carried out at dawn and in the morning of Wednesday 80 airstrikes on 36 towns in eastern and southern Lebanon. Earlier, 6 people were killed in a Zionist army raid on a rescue center in the heart of Beirut, according to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, the second strike targeting the interior of the capital this week.
And the Arab League has, in the latest news, the Secretary General of the Arab League, and he said that the League's solidarity expressed the League's solidarity with Lebanon, warning of a regional war. Now, the Polisario Front representative to the United Nations and coordinator with MINURSO, Mohammed Sidi Omar, has stated that the visit of the UN Secretary General's personal envoy for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, to the Sahrawi refugee camps and his meeting with the Sahrawi leaders will be an opportunity to reaffirm the attachment of the Sahrawi people to their right to self-determination, freedom and independence. Said Bouazi has more details.
In a statement to the APS news agency, Mohammed Sidi Omar said that the visit that de Mistura plans to make to the refugee camps to meet with the Sahrawi side is part of the preparation of his briefing to be presented to the UN Security Council on 16th October. This visit, he adds, comes in the context of his attempts to deepen his contacts with the Polisario Front as well as with the Moroccan occupation state. In the same connection, the Sahrawi diplomat underlined that this third visit takes place in a difficult context where the peace process in Western Sahara is at an impasse because of the stubbornness of the Moroccan occupier who violated on 13 November 2020 the ceasefire agreement signed in 1991 when it was agreed to hold a referendum on self-determination. He further stated that this visit comes at a time when the occupying state is intensifying its suppression and burning land policy in the occupied part of the Sahrawi Arab Republic, where the Makhzen continues to plunder and confiscate Sahrawi lands as part of a colonial policy aimed at taking away from the Sahrawi people their land and settling Moroccans in their place. Mohammed Sidi Omar said that this visit will be an opportunity for the Sahrawi side to reaffirm its firm and unwavering position regarding its legitimate and non-negotiable rights to self-determination, freedom and independence, as well as its commitment to defend firmly and by all legitimate means, including armed struggle, its legitimate rights to regain sovereignty over the whole of the occupied territories.
As a reminder, let's say that the personal envoy of the Secretary General for Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, today arrived in the Sahrawi refugee camps to meet with the Sahrawi leaders. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Thank you for joining us. Please stay safe. Bye-bye for now.